Make sure you stick around for that here on Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Locked On Sooner fans, we've got a special guest on with us today. We have Brett Ciancia from Pick Six Previews. Awesome book, a great book to preview for the season. Also a Heisman voter joining us today. Brett, how you doing?
Hey, Jay, thanks for having me on. Doing great. It's a busy time of year here with Pick Six Previews. We got the magazine shipping out and making the radio tour. But yeah, really glad to be on talking Oklahoma with you and excited to break it down.
I appreciate that. So we're going to start with some easy stuff. I'm looking through the book, and you have your 5-year recruiting average, and that has Oklahoma set as a top 10 team within that 5-year period of talent. And so kind of going to put you on the spot here to start. Is there a path to you in your mind that Oklahoma could win 10 games this season?
It's definitely possible. I have Oklahoma rated as a top 15 team in the country. I've got them number 14 overall. A lot of that is because of what they brought in on offense from the transfer portal, a quarterback with John Mateer. They're starting over at coordinator, and I like that move. Ben Arbuckle is a coordinator that has had success everywhere he's been so far. A young guy, but still has a good resume there so far. So talent-wise, I really like it, but the catch with Oklahoma this year is it's out of their control. It's the schedule draw, and it happened last year. They got a tough SEC welcome gift, but it reverses again this year, the same opponents. So if you're looking at this schedule, I see 7, maybe even 8 top 25 opponents. That's just brutal to deal a team. So I think it's Brent Venables' best team yet. It's also his hardest schedule yet. But if you're going through it, there's a way they can get to 10 wins. They're going to have to win all their 50-50 games, maybe steal a couple, but it's doable. There's enough talent here to do it.
Love to hear that. And so when we look at your here in the mag, you talk about in 10-year Oklahoma top offenses. You had Oklahoma up there as number 2. Of course, that included the era with Bob Stoops as well as Lincoln Riley and going into now. And last year, Oklahoma had a historically bad offense. And so with the additions on offense, what does your data say about Oklahoma on the offensive side of the ball? And how many wins do you think this offense could generate in comparison to how they performed last year?
Yeah, well, it was interesting to see. It was strange to see an Oklahoma offense playing that poorly. I mean, most of the time that I've been doing Pick Six Previews, I launched in 2012. That's covering some of the best offenses, not only at Oklahoma, but in college football history. I mean, Heisman winners, points like crazy. So to see last year's collapse was shocking. There was a couple of pieces at play here. Number one, at quarterback, it was a freshman. It's always hard to win with that. And who knows, Jackson Arnold might go on to have a great career. It's just so hard with a freshman starting quarterback in this conference. Another thing was the offensive line was really young, a lot of new faces last year. But this is one of the best line coaches in the country, Coach Beatonbow. I really trust him. So I think it was a one-off situation last year with all those new starters. All 5 guys from 2023 departed. It was, starting from scratch last year. So at those 2 spots, I think you have upgrades and at least more veteran play, with the line now shifting over to a veteran unit. And then John Mateer, a guy coming from Washington State, with Ben Arbuckle. You get the combo package. You get coordinator and quarterback from one of the best offenses in the country. And I don't want to get ahead of myself. You watch this guy play, he's got the headband and the towel and the swagger. I mean, I don't want to call him Baker Mayfield just yet, but I mean, he has that playing style, and you know he's going to get his stats. So, so I think they upgraded at the 2 most important spots on that offense, which was quarterback and O-line. So with that, to pair that with a Brent Venables defense, I think you have something cooking here, because when you hire Venables as your head coach, you expect a strong defense, and they've had that for the most part. Last year, another top 10 unit per my numbers. You got a lot of guys back again on defense. So I think that part's fine. It's just how quickly can this new offense round into form?
So when you, as you mentioned, with John Mateer coming over with Ben Arbuckle offensively rated pretty well in your book last year from the Cam Ward year that they had, and then last season John Mateer took over and it looks like he did well. How do you think this offense with Ben Arbuckle and then John Mateer and the new pieces that they have, how do you think that they'll be able to adjust here in the SEC?
Well, it's worked for other places within the SEC. You've seen some of this pass-heavy offense really click. Think of Ole Miss and Tennessee a few years back when they were making their run. And they do balance it with some running, but thinking mostly spread offenses, tempo, that stuff has played here. The SEC originally, maybe 10 years ago, was more of that rugged under center kind of power offense during the early part of the Saban era, but it's modernized with the rest of college football, so I think it'll fit in great here. And give Oklahoma a competitive shot in a lot of games. I think you're going to at least see competent offensive play. I mean, last year was a train wreck on that side, so I think it's going to be – and also, I forgot to mention this part of it too. Young offensive line, we said last year, and young quarterback. Their receiver room was so unlucky with the injuries. I mean, I think all three starters were knocked out by the first game or within a quarter or something crazy. Yeah. So that's just that usually doesn't happen. That's not going to happen 2 years in a row. So I like the moves that the guys they added at receiver, and should be a more competent offense overall. So I think the scheme will do just fine. He's had plenty of time to install it, and it really helps bringing your quarterback with you. I mean, imagine installing a new scheme to a whole new quarterback room, but having Mateer there, a guy familiar with it, it's almost like having a second coach right there in the QB room. So I think that's going to accelerate the growth.
Yeah, and you may mention that in the mag around Bill Beatonbow being used to this type of scheme. So your expectation is the offensive line should be able to mesh well now, especially having an additional year of experience because we played so many not only young players but dealt with so many injured players. But this is something Bill Beatonbow is used to. But you also made a good point about teams around like Ole Miss, Tennessee. One team I keep looking at that brought in a OC and quarterback was Vanderbilt. They brought in Tim Beck as well as Diego Pavia. That gets you a nice 1-2 punch. And then Diego went out there and played like a baller to help Vanderbilt get to 7 wins, something they haven't seen in a while. Then you have Jaden Au joining them. How do you feel like Ott fits in this Oklahoma scheme and system for Ben Arbuckle, and what do you think that can do for the Sooners?
Yeah, you're getting one of the top running backs in the country. Definitely one of the top running back transfers this cycle. I think he was rated number 3 by 24/7 Sports in the transfer portal. But this is a guy, if you go back a few years, he was dominant. I remember watching him on the old Pac-12 network. It was always the late game. It was Cal. And I think as a freshman, he put up a 1,000-yard season in 2022. And I think he did it again in 2023. Now, last year was cut short by an injury. That's why he was a little bit off the radar, and people might have forgotten about him a little bit. But now look back at those 22 and 23 seasons. He was dominant, and that was on a Cal team where they didn't have any passing threat to support him. So teams knew it was coming. They packed the box, and Jaden Au was still able to get his yards. So, I was already pretty high on Oklahoma, having them up in the top 15, and then this was a late spring addition to just pile in more talent into that room. So, yeah, you got a great upgrade there. In fact, in the book this year, I had to include an all-transfer team. Everyone's familiar with All-America, All-SEC, but with so much player movement, I put an all-transfer team in there. And Oklahoma's got the quarterback and the running back. You got Mateer and Ott both on there. So really an upgrade at both spots.
It's good stuff. That's a good point. Yeah, Ott it was 800 and something yards his freshman year, but it was close to 1,000. It's like 822, but he did have 1,300 his second. 2,500 yards over a 3-year period is nothing to sneeze at. We're talking with Brett Ciancia over there at Pick 6 Previews. Brett, let's talk defense real quick. Expectations around the defensive side of the ball for Oklahoma. You mentioned bringing in Brent Venables, and you usually will see a top 10 defense or see a defense that will improve. And last season, in your metrics, you had them top 10. Now, losing Danny Stutzman as well as Billy Bowman and some of the edge play, some people feel like Oklahoma could fall off, but in some places I've seen that you feel like the defense should actually see an improvement with a competent offense. How do you feel about Oklahoma's defense going into this season, and kind of what you expect from them as far as possibly falling in your rankings?
Yeah, well, first look back at last year, and they were top 10 in my numbers, like we said. Number 4 rushing defense in my numbers, so they were really stout there in the trenches. They were really good at limiting opposing rushing offenses. And so we'll start there. And what I like most about the defense is that a lot of that defensive line is back. A lot of the core of this defense is back. The 4-man rotation at tackle is elite. You got Williams, Halton, Stone, last year a true freshman All-American, and Jaden Jackson. That's a whole 2 deep right there at defensive tackle on the interior. That looks elite. You got Thomas back at defensive end. That's an all-SEC guy, maybe even all-American caliber. So the defensive line itself makes them one of the strongest defenses in the league. And then, and then you backfill a little bit for some stars leaving in the back seven. But, I mean, just at face value, that defensive line keeps them a strength. And otherwise, sometimes you worry about when a coordinator change happens that it might disrupt the continuity. But with Venables as your head coach, it's really his defense too. So I'm not too worried about Zach Alley leaving for West Virginia. In fact, Venables brought in one of his former sidekicks, Wes Goodwin, from Clemson. So he's familiar with Venables' scheme. I don't see anything changing there. It's still Brent's defense. So overall, yeah, this was part of the logic why I was a little bit higher on Oklahoma is I think I know what I'm getting with that defense. It's going to be another top 10 unit with a lot of faces back from last year and one of the best defensive lines in the country.
Yeah, and what you having them tied for 6th in the SEC and 14th overall, it's right there knocking on the door of potential playoffs. Is there a particular game or what in a particular games that you feel like Oklahoma may potentially struggle or fall in that will prevent them from being able to push into the playoffs?
Well, yeah, it's just like we said, a total gauntlet. But I'll open up. I'll see a 5-0 start. I think they're going to go and beat Michigan in Norman this year and beat Auburn there September 20th. You're going to be 4-0 leaving September. Kent State's another win. That's 5-0. So you're 5-0 heading to the State Fair, and that's going to be a battle. Everyone's high on Texas. I'm one of them. I've got them at the top of the conference, and they've had quite the track record the last couple of years. So that's going to be tough. But remember, this isn't the BCS. So you can lose a game or two or even 3 and still be in that discussion. I think 10-2 for Oklahoma is a playoff lock given this schedule. 9-3. I know that last year the 9-3 SECs were left out, but this is the hardest schedule I've seen in a long time. So I do think 9-3 gets you in the discussion, and based off margins of victory or close losses, that kind of thing might still make the bracket at 9-3. So if you're doing the math here, I'm seeing a 5-0 start. Got a lot of hurdles at the back half of the schedule, though. I mean, a road trip at Alabama is going to be brutal. LSU, I've projected as a playoff team. I think Oklahoma can handle South Carolina and Missouri, teams I'm kind of pessimistic about, actually. So it shakes out with Texas, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Bama, LSU. It's a bunch of tough games, but, there's a path there. If everything falls their way, there's a path.
Okay, that makes sense. So I have to ask you, on what side of the fence are you on when it comes to a head coach also calling plays? You mentioned Brent Venables now taking over the play calling, and there has been like mixed feelings to me when that was kind of announced. And as you mentioned, Brent Venables is known for being really good at this. He did it at Clemson. This has been his thing. But I've heard analysts and I've heard fans kind of be a little worried about him making that decision. But you have other coaches in the SEC that calls plays on their side of the ball, especially on the offensive side. Where do you fall on that, and how do you feel about a head coach calling their offense or their defense?
I would say it's case by case, really, and it is kind of rare nowadays, just given all the responsibilities of a head coach. But one thing I was thinking about with this is that before this general manager era, I mean, all the recruiting, all the NIL was on the head coach's plate. So I wondered, would they even have any headspace left to do the actual play calling? But now you do at least have that general manager spot. You can maybe offload some of that pressure. But I would say, again, it's case by case. And given Venables' history as one of the best coordinators in college football, I mean, I think that's an advantage for this team to have him doing what he does best, and that is call a defense, especially if you found what we think is going to be a great offensive scheme and system and proven coordinator there that that guy can take the reins of that half of the ball. So I'm okay with it. You've seen it been successful elsewhere. Mike Leach comes to mind. He was a play caller. He called every single play at Texas Tech and Mississippi State and Washington State when he was the head coach. You see it elsewhere. I know Sarkisian likes to script up his play script as an offensive guy at Texas. I think Clark Lee at Vanderbilt comes to mind as another one that might have called the defense a little bit. So you see it. It's maybe like 5 or 10% of coaches do it. So it's rare, but I think case by case, and in this case, I would definitely take it as a positive.
Awesome. Well, this is Brent Ciancia from Pick Six Previews. I appreciate you coming on to the show with us and talking some ball.
Oh, of course, Jay. Anytime. Appreciate you having me on. Good luck, Sooners, this year. And we'll be in touch, but hopefully they ascend higher than 6th place in the SEC and make it in that bracket.
Let's hope for it.
And that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Hope you enjoyed that interview with Brett Ciancia over at Pick 6 Previews. Make sure you subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on every podcast platform and on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Follow Jay at Unfair Sports. Go check out his channel, Unfair Sports, over on YouTube. You can follow me at John9Williams. You can read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. I'm going to have an article over at Sooners Wire on Friday discussing 5 players that need to have a big camp for Oklahoma this fall. Might have already discussed a couple of those guys on this show. I'll go into a little bit further detail in that article as well. Make sure you follow the show on all of your favorite social media platforms at Locked On Sooners. But until next time, he's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. We'll talk to you then. Boomer.
Sooner. We're going to the playoffs, y'all. Just want to let y'all know that.
Let's go.